The crystal towers of Zephria Prime stretched toward the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the tallest spire, the Galactic Federation Council sat in emergency session for the third time this month. High Counselor Valdrus translucent. Skin flickered with patterns of deep worry as he looked at the holographic displays floating above the council chamber. Each display showed the same terrible story. 12 Federation worlds had fallen to the Korvac Empire in just 2 years. Images were horrifying. Beautiful cities reduced to smoking ruins. Crystal forests shattered into dust. Millions of peaceful beings either dead or taken as slaves to feed the Korvac war machine. The situation grows worse each day, Valdrus said, his melodic voice carrying across the chamber. Our defensive shields cannot stop their ramming ships. Our peacekeeping forces are not trained for this level of violence. We need help, and we need it now. Counselor Zeroth, from the water world of Aquanus, spoke next. Her blue-green skin rippled with anxiety. We have sent diplomatic messages to the Korvac Empire for months. They respond only with demands for our complete surrender. Perhaps we should consider evacuation, suggested Counselor Morden from the forest world of Verdania. His bark-like skin creaked as he shifted in his seat. We could relocate our populations to the Outer Rim territories. Veltar's patterns darkened. And abandon 10,000 years of civilization. Leave our ancestors' worlds to these monsters. No, there must be another way. The council chamber fell silent. For generations, the Federation had solved every problem through discussion, technology, and cooperation. War was something they had read about in ancient histories. It's not something they ever expected to face. Far across the galaxy, Commander Lisa Hart stood on the bridge of the human exploration vessel Aurora. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and steady gray eyes. For 3 months, her crew had been mapping star systems at the edge of known space, looking for new worlds that humans might someday colonize. Commander, we're picking up some kind of transmission, said Lieutenant Jake Morrison from the communications station. He was a young man with red hair and freckles who had joined the space service straight from the academy. It's on multiple frequencies and it's weird. Lisa walked over to his station. Define weird? It's clearly artificial, but the signal pattern doesn't match anything in our databases. It's really powerful. It's one he's putting a lot of energy into. Broadcasting this message? Amy Collins looked up from the science station. She was a small woman with dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and wire-rimmed glasses. I'm running the signal through our translation programs. Give me a few minutes. The bridge crew waited. While Amy worked, the Aurora was humanity's newest deep space exploration ship, equipped with the latest technology Earth could build. It had a crew of 43 people, all volunteers who had signed up to spend years away from home exploring the unknown. Got it, Amy said suddenly. The signal is a distress call. Someone is asking for military help. Lisa frowned. Put it on speakers. The bridge filled with a strange melodic sound, followed by the computer's translation in a calm female voice. To any species capable of warfare, the Galactic Federation requests immediate military assistance. We are under attack by the Korvac Empire. We offer advanced technology, valuable resources, and territorial grants in exchange for aid. Please, respond if you have experience in combat operations. Jake was the first to speak. Did they just say Galactic Federation? We're not alone, whispered Amy. There are other intelligent species out there. Lisa felt her heart racing. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. First contact with alien life. But the message was asking for military help, not peaceful exchange. How far away is the signal coming from? She asked. Amy checked her instruments. It's about 40 light years. That's way outside our normal patrol area. Can we get there? Yes. But it would take us 3 weeks at maximum speed. We'd be completely cut off from Earth. No backup, no reinforcements. Lisa stared at the star map on the main screen. 43 people against unknown aliens in an unknown war. It should have been an easy decision to ignore the message and continue their mapping mission. But the voice in the transmission had sounded so desperate, so afraid. Send a response, Lisa said. Tell them we received their message and we're coming to help. Commander, are you sure about this? asked Chief Engineer Ben Carter, a gray-haired veteran who had served in Earth's colonial wars. "We don't know anything about this Federation or their enemies. We could be walking into a trap." Lisa nodded. "You're right. But if that message is real, then there's an entire civilization out there facing extinction. We can't just ignore that." "If we're not strong enough to help?" Amy asked. "They're asking for military assistance. We're an exploration ship." "Then we'll do what we can," Lisa replied. "Plot a course for the source of that transmission." Maximum speed. The Aurora changed direction, its powerful engines pushing the ship toward Federation space. During the long journey, Amy worked around, the clock analyzing every piece of information in the alien transmission. What she discovered was both amazing and terrifying. The Galactic Federation consisted of dozens of different alien species spread across hundreds of worlds. They had technology that was thousands of years ahead of humanity. They could manipulate gravity, convert matter into energy, communicate instantly across vast distances. But there was something strange about their message. They were asking for help from species capable of warfare and wanted races with experience in combat operations. That suggested the Federation itself had no military experience. Amy brought her findings to Lisa's ready room 3 days into their journey. "Commander, I think we need to talk about what we're flying into." Lisa looked up from the reports she was reading. "What did you find?" "The Federation species seem to be incredibly advanced, but completely peaceful. I've analyzed their language patterns and cultural references in the transmission. They don't have words for many military concepts that we consider basic, such as strategy, tactics, ambush, flanking maneuvers. They have words for disagreement and conflict resolution, but nothing that translates to battle or war in the way we understand it." Lisa felt a chill. "What about their enemies, these Korvac?" "From what I can tell, they're a warrior species that has been expanding through conquest. The Federation describes them as savage and unstoppable, but that might just be because the Federation has never fought anyone before. So we might be flying into a war between completely peaceful aliens and aggressive conquerors. That's what it looks like, and the Federation is losing badly." Lisa stared out the viewport at the stars rushing past. Earth had given the Aurora permission to make first contact if they encountered alien life. But nobody had imagined a situation like this. Should they get involved in an alien war? Did humanity have any right to interfere? But the more she thought about it, the more Lisa realized they couldn't just watch an entire civilization be destroyed. If the Federation was as peaceful as Amy believed, then they probably had no idea how to defend themselves against a military invasion. Maybe that was where humanity could help. Humans knew about war. Earth's history was full of conflicts, and humanity had learned hard lessons about survival, strategy, fighting against overwhelming odds. 2 weeks later, the Aurora dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zephria system. What they saw on their screens made the crew gasp in horror. The beautiful crystal world of Zephria Prime was scarred with massive craters. Debris from destroyed ships floated in orbit around the planet. The elegant spires that Amy had seen in the Federation's cultural transmissions were broken and dark. "My God," whispered Jake. "We're too late." But then Amy detected life signs from underground shelters across the planet. The Federation was still alive, barely hanging on and hidden. Refuges beneath their ruined cities. Lisa activated the communications system. "This is Commander Lisa Hart of the human vessel Aurora, responding to your distress call, Zephria Prime. Please respond if you can hear this message." The reply came immediately, filled with hope and desperate gratitude. "Human vessel Aurora. This is High Counselor Veltar of the Galactic Federation. We have been waiting for someone to answer our call. Please, we need your help before it's too late." The shuttle bay doors of Zephria Prime's underground facility opened with a soft musical chime. Commander Lisa Hart stepped out of the Aurora's landing craft, followed by Jake Morrison and Amy Collins. The air smelled like flowers and ozone, and everything around them seemed to glow with a soft inner light. High Counselor Veltar waited for them at the bottom of the ramp. Lisa had seen pictures of Zephrians in their cultural transmissions, but meeting one in person was still shocking. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, with skin so clear she could see veins of light pulsing beneath the surface. His large eyes were the color of deep ocean water, and when he spoke, his voice created harmonies that seemed impossible for a single being to produce. "Commander Hart," Valdrus said, bowing deeply. "Your arrival brings hope to our darkest hour. I am sorry you must see us in such terrible circumstances." Lisa looked around the underground shelter. Thousands of Zephrians filled the vast space, their translucent forms huddled together in family groups. Many showed signs of injury, their skin flickered with patterns of pain and fear. Children clung to their parents, their usual bright glow, dimmed to barely visible sparks. "How many survivors are there?" Lisa asked. "On this world, perhaps 2 million. Before the attack, we had 12 million inhabitants." Valdrus' skin darkened with grief. "The Krovac came without warning. Their ships smashed through our orbital defenses like they were made of glass. Then they landed and began hunting us for sport." Amy stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her shock. "Counselor Valdrus, could you tell us more about the Krovac? We need to understand what we're facing." Valdrus led them to a large crystal screen that flickered to life at his touch. The display showed images of the enemy that made Jake take a step backward. The Krovac looked like giant insects walking on 2 legs. They had thick black armor plating covering their bodies, 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws, and heads that were mostly mouth-filled with serrated teeth. "They stand 6 feet tall and are incredibly strong," Valdrus explained. "Their armor can deflect most of our energy weapons. They seem to feel no fear and take pleasure in causing pain. We have tried to communicate with them, to understand what they want, but they respond only with violence." Lisa studied the battle footage. The Krovac moved in simple formations, charging straight at their enemies without any attempt at strategy or tactics. They relied entirely on their natural weapons and superior numbers. Against the peaceful Federation, it was working perfectly. "What kind of weapons do your people have?" she asked. Valdrus looked confused. "Weapons? We have tools for mining and construction, some devices that can stun aggressive animals, but we have never needed instruments designed to harm other intelligent beings." Jake exchanged glances with Amy. "Sir, what do you use for military defense?" "Military? I do not understand this word." Amy pulled out her tablet and showed Valdrus pictures of human soldiers, tanks, and fighter jets. "These are warriors. People. Trained to fight in organized battles." Valdrus stared at the images for a long moment. Skin patterns shifted through colors that Lisa guessed meant shock and confusion. "Your species creates beings whose only purpose is to harm others. It's more complicated than that," Lisa said carefully. "We create soldiers to protect people who cannot protect themselves. Sometimes that means fighting those who would hurt. Innocent people, I see." Valdrus' voice was quiet. "We've never needed such individuals. In our 10,000 years of civilization, we have settled all disputes through discussion and understanding. The concept of organized violence is ... foreign to us." Dr. Ryan Phillips arrived from the Aurora that afternoon with his medical team. He was a tall, thin man with kind eyes who specialized in alien biology. After examining both Zephrian survivors and Krovac prisoners, he requested a private meeting with Lisa. "Commander, I've made some interesting discoveries," Ryan said as they walked through the crystal gardens that had once covered Zephria's surface. Most of the delicate structures were shattered now, but a few sections remained intact, their beauty made more precious by their fragility. "What did you find?" "The Zephrians are remarkable. Our world has almost no natural predators, no violent weather, and abundant resources. They evolved intelligence as a tool for cooperation, not survival. Their brains are actually structured differently from ours. The parts that handle aggression and fear responses are much smaller." Lisa nodded. "That explains why they seem so helpless against the Krovac. But here's the interesting part. I also examined some Krovac prisoners. They're not the mindless killing machines the Federation thinks they are. Their world is harsh, but not extremely so. They developed a warrior culture, but it's based on honor and strength, not pure savagery. What does that mean? It means they can be reasoned with if you approach them correctly." The problem is that the Federation's attempts at communication come across as weakness to Korvax psychology. They see the Zephrians as prey animals, not worthy opponents. Meanwhile, Chief Ben Carter was conducting his own investigation. He had requested all available footage of Korvax battles and was analyzing their tactics in the Aurora's briefing room. "Commander, you need to see this," Ben said when Lisa returned to the ship that evening. The main screen showed a Korvax assault. On a Federation orbital station, Lisa watched as dozens of insect-like ships charged straight at the target without any attempt at flanking maneuvers or coordinated strikes. "They're using World War I tactics," Ben said with amazement. "Frontal assault, overwhelming numbers, no subtlety at all. Any decent military academy graduate could tear them apart with proper positioning and crossfire. But they're winning," Lisa pointed out. "Only because the Federation doesn't fight back. Look at this." Ben showed her another clip where Federation defenders retreated at the first sign of violence. "The Zephrians are so horrified by the concept of hurting another being that they won't even defend themselves effectively." Lisa rubbed her temples. The situation was becoming clearer, but also more complicated. The Federation had incredible technology, but no understanding of warfare. The Korvax had military experience, but were using primitive tactics that only worked against completely passive opponents. The next morning, Lisa called a meeting with the Senior Federation Council. Altar was joined by Counselor Zareth from Aquanus, whose blue-green skin rippled with nervous patterns, and Counselor Morden from Verdania, whose bark-like exterior creaked when he moved. "We need to understand the full scope of this war," Lisa began. "How many worlds have the Korvax conquered? What's their ultimate goal?" Zara spoke first, her voice like water flowing over stones. "They have taken 12 of our worlds in 2 years. Each time they follow the same pattern. They demand our surrender, and when we refuse, they attack. After victory, they enslave our populations and strip our worlds of resources." Morden's branches rustled with agitation. "Our intelligence suggests they are building toward an assault on our capital system. If they succeed, the Federation government will fall and our remaining worlds will surrender rather than face destruction." "How long do we have?" Lisa asked. "Perhaps 6 months," Veltar replied. "Maybe less." Lisa looked at her small crew and felt the weight of an entire civilization's survival on her shoulders. The Aurora carried advanced weapons by human standards, but they were still just one ship against an empire. Even with Federation technology, they would need help. "I need to contact Earth," she said finally. "We're going to need reinforcements." "How long will that take?" Zareth asked. 6 months for the message to reach Earth, then another 6 months for ships to arrive. Maybe longer. The council members' skin patterns shifted to what Lisa was learning to recognize as despair. Veltar spoke quietly. "The war will be over." "By then, not necessarily," Lisa said with more confidence than she felt. "We can start preparing your defenses now. My crew can teach your people basic military tactics and help you modify your technology for combat use. You would do this?" Morden asked. "Help us become ... warriors." Lisa chose her words carefully. "We would help you become defenders. There's a difference between fighting to conquer and fighting to protect what you love." That evening, Lisa stood alone on the observation deck of the underground facility, looking up through the crystal dome at the star-filled sky. Amy joined her, carrying 2 cups of the warm, sweet drink the Zephrians had shared with them. "Penny, for your thoughts, Commander? I keep thinking about what we're doing here," Lisa said. "We came out here to explore and make peaceful contact with alien life. Instead, we're about to teach an entire civilization how to wage war." Amy sipped her drink thoughtfully. "Maybe that's exactly what they need. The Federation created something beautiful here. Society without violence, without war, without hatred. But beauty needs protection sometimes, and if we change them, if teaching them to fight destroys what makes them special, then at least they'll be alive to figure out how to be special again." Lisa nodded slowly. Through the dome she could see the Aurora-like lights that danced in Zephria's upper atmosphere. Even after the devastation of war, the planet was still beautiful, still worth saving. Tomorrow, she would begin the strange task of turning peaceful beings into soldiers. 6 months had passed since the Aurora first arrived at Zephria Prime. Now the sky above the crystal world was filled with human ships. Admiral Kate Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, watching as her fleet took defensive positions around the Federation capital system. Kate was a veteran of 3 colonial wars, stern woman with gray hair and sharp blue eyes who had never lost a battle. Behind her stood Colonel Steve Murphy, a broad-shouldered man with scarred hands who commanded the Marine Expeditionary Force. Together, they represented humanity's answer to the Federation's desperate plea for help. "Admiral, we have confirmation from all ships," reported Captain Helen Torres from the communications station. Helen was a combat engineer who had volunteered to leave her family on Mars to help complete strangers fight for their survival. "The fleet is ready for deployment." Kate nodded and activated the ship-wide communication system. "This is Admiral Rodriguez speaking to all Colonial Defense Force personnel. 6 months ago, we received a call for help from beings we had never met, fighting a war we had never heard of. Today, we stand ready to answer that call." She paused, looking out at the fleet of 37 ships that represented the largest military force humanity had ever sent beyond Earth's solar system. Destroyers, cruisers, fighter carriers, and marine transports floated in perfect formation against the starfield. "We are not here as conquerors or crusaders. We are here because an entire civilization faces extinction, and they asked for our help. Every one of you volunteered for this mission, knowing you might never see home again. That courage will make the difference between life and death for billions of innocent beings." On the surface of Zephria Prime, Colonel Murphy met with Commander Lisa Hart in what had once been the planet's most beautiful garden. The crystal trees were slowly growing back, their new growth more resilient than the original structures. It seemed fitting that the Federation was learning to become stronger, too. "Lisa, I need your assessment of the situation," Steve said, as they walked between the healing trees. "My Marines are good, but they've never fought alongside aliens before." Lisa gestured toward a group of Zephrians practicing with human-designed weapons. The tall, graceful beings moved awkwardly with the military equipment, their translucent skin flickering with patterns of confusion and determination. "They're learning, but it's hard for them," she replied. "Everything about warfare goes against their nature. Yesterday, one of them asked me why we don't just invite the Korvac to a peace conference." Steve winced. "What did you tell him? That some people only understand strength?" The Zephrians are starting to grasp that concept, but it's painful for them. They stopped at a training field where Dr. Ryan Phillips was working with a mixed group of Federation species. The tall Zephrians stood beside the blue-green Aquanus water dwellers and the tree-like Verdanians, all trying to learn basic squad tactics from human instructors. "The good news is that their technology is incredible," Lisa continued. "Captain Torres has been working with their engineers to weaponize some of their peaceful tools. The results are amazing." As if summoned by her words, Helen Torres approached from the equipment testing area. Her uniform was stained with crystal dust, and her face was bright with excitement. "Colonel, you have to see this," Helen said, leading them to a demonstration area. "Zephrians showed me their matter conversion technology. Watch," she activated a device that looked like a crystal sculpture. A target made of solid metal simply vanished, converted into harmless energy that dissipated into the atmosphere. "They use this for waste disposal and construction," Helen explained. "But with some modifications, it becomes the most effective weapon I've ever seen. No armor can stop it because it doesn't destroy matter, it just changes it into something else." Steve stared at the empty space where the target had been. "How many of these can they build?" "As many as we need. Their manufacturing systems can create almost anything if you give them the right design. The problem isn't technology, it's psychology." That moment, Major Chris Adams approached from the intelligence center. Chris was a quiet man with keen eyes who had spent the last 6 months studying Krovac battle tactics and culture. "Colonel, we need to talk," Chris said. "I've been analyzing the enemy's recent movements, and I think I understand their strategy." They moved to a secure briefing room where Chris had set up holographic displays showing Krovac fleet positions. Across Federation space, "The Korvac aren't just random raiders," Chris began. They're following a specific pattern. Every world they've conquered has something in common: strategic resources or defensive positions that control shipping lanes. Lisa studied the map. They're building a supply network. Exactly, and it all leads to one target. Chris highlighted the Federation capital system. They're planning a massive assault on the government worlds. If they succeed, the remaining Federation planets will surrender rather than fight. Steve frowned. When soon? Our long-range scouts report that Korvac fleets are massing at 3 staging areas. Based on their previous patterns, I estimate they'll attack within 2 weeks. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. 2 weeks to prepare for a battle that would determine the fate of an entire galactic civilization. Admiral Rodriguez arrived that evening for a strategy meeting with her senior officers. The conference room aboard the Defiance was crowded with humans and Federation representatives, creating a strange mix of military uniforms and flowing alien robes. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored allies," Kate began, "Major Adams has confirmed what we've suspected. The Korvac are preparing for their final assault on the Federation capital worlds. We have perhaps 2 weeks to prepare our defenses." High Counselor Valdrus spoke up, his melodic voice filled with worry. "Admiral, our intelligence suggests the Korvac fleet will number over 200 ships. Your force is much smaller." Kate smiled grimly. "Counselor, in human military history, smaller forces have defeated larger ones many times. The key is using the right strategy and tactics." She activated a holographic display showing the capital system. "The Korvac have always used the same approach: direct frontal assault with overwhelming numbers. They've never faced an enemy that fights back intelligently." Colonel Murphy leaned forward. "What's the plan, Admiral?" "We're going to give them something they've never encountered before. A defense that adapts, moves, and strikes back." Captain Torres: "How are the planetary fortifications coming?" Helen stood and activated her own display. "We've installed the modified Zephrian matter converters at key defensive positions on all 3 inhabited worlds. The Federation's shield generators have been upgraded with human tactical systems. But the real surprise is the orbital defense network." The display showed a ring of small satellites around each planet. These look like standard communication relays, but they're actually weapon platforms using miniaturized Federation technology. The Korvac won't even know they're there until it's too late. Dr. Phillips raised his hand. "Admiral, I've been working with Korvac prisoners, and I've learned something important about their psychology. They respect strength and despise weakness, but they also have a strong sense of honor. If we can demonstrate that we're worthy opponents, some of them might be willing to negotiate." Kate nodded. "That's good to know, Doctor. But first, we have to survive their initial assault." Over the next week, the combined Human Federation force worked around the clock to prepare their defenses. Human Marines trained alongside Zephrian volunteers, teaching them how to use cover and coordinate their movements. Federation engineers worked with human technicians to create new weapons that combine the best of both technologies. Amy Collins, now serving as a liaison between human and Federation scientists, made a breakthrough discovery while studying Korvac communications. "Commander Hart, I think I've found something important," Amy said as she burst into Lisa's temporary office. "I've been analyzing captured Korvac transmissions. Their language has concepts that the Federation doesn't understand, such as honor, respect, worthy enemies. The Korvac don't just want to conquer the Federation. They want to prove their strength against powerful opponents. The problem is, they see the Federation as weak prey, not worthy enemies," Lisa felt. "A spark of understanding. So if we can show them that the Federation is strong, ... they might be willing to talk instead of just attacking. It's not guaranteed, but it's possible." The final preparations were completed just in time. Long-range sensors detected the approaching Korvac fleet 3 days before the estimated arrival time. Admiral Rodriguez called one last strategy meeting aboard the Defiance. "The enemy fleet consists of 247 ships," she announced to her assembled officers. "They're approaching in the standard Korvac formation, a dense wedge designed for maximum impact in a frontal assault." She gestured to the tactical display. They expect to find the same passive resistance they've encountered before. Instead, they're going to face coordinated human military tactics combined with Federation technology. Colonel Murphy spoke up. Admiral, my ground forces are ready. If any Korvac ships break through the orbital defenses, we'll be waiting for them. The Korvac fleet appeared at the edge of the Valdrus system like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. Admiral Kate Rodriguez watched from the bridge of the Defiance as her sensors counted the enemy ships. 247 vessels. Just as intelligence had predicted, each one was massive, built for ramming and boarding rather than elegant warfare. All ships report ready, Admiral, Captain Torres announced from her station. The Federation Defense Fleet is in position behind the third moon. Ground forces are prepared on all 3 worlds. Kate studied the tactical display. The Korvac ships were arranged in their traditional wedge formation designed to punch through enemy defenses with pure force. What they didn't know was that this time their enemies were ready for them. Signal all units, Kate ordered. Operation Guardian begins now. Remember, we don't engage until they commit to their attack run. On the surface of Valdrus Prime, Colonel Steve Murphy crouched behind a crystal barrier that had been reinforced with human armor plating. Around him, a mixed force of human Marines and Federation volunteers waited in carefully prepared positions. The landscape had been transformed over the past weeks into a maze of defensive strongpoints connected by underground tunnels. Colonel, Orbital Control reports the enemy fleet is beginning their approach. Sergeant Don Hayes whispered into his communicator. Don was a veteran who had fought in the Martian Rebellion and knew how to make every shot count. Steve looked through his binoculars at the peaceful city beyond their position. Zephrian families had been evacuated to underground shelters, but many had chosen to stay and help defend their world. Their translucent forms moved between the defensive positions, carrying supplies and operating Federation technology that the humans couldn't understand. Remember the plan, Steve said to his troops. We let them land. We let them think they're winning. Then we show them what a real fight looks like. In space, the Korvac fleet accelerated toward Valdrus Prime. Admiral Graxter stood on the bridge of his flagship, his 4 arms clicking with anticipation. He was a massive Korvac warrior, whose black armor was decorated with trophies from a dozen conquered worlds. Weak shells flee before our approach, Graxter rumbled to his officers. Soon we feast on their crystal cities and take their females for breeding stock. The Federation Defense Fleet remained hidden behind the moon using Zephrian stealth technology to mask their presence. Commander Lisa Hart stood beside High Counselor Veltar on the bridge of the Federation command ship. The Zephrian skin flickered with patterns of fear and determination. Your people are brave, Counselor, Lisa said quietly. 6 months ago, they had never seen war. Now they're willing to die to protect their homes. Veltar's large eyes reflected. The Starlight, human warriors, you have taught us that some things are worth fighting for. Our children's future is one of those things. The first phase of the battle began when the Korvac fleet entered the orbital defense zone. Hidden weapon platforms that looked like communication satellites suddenly activated, firing concentrated beams of converted matter at the enemy ships. Admiral Graxter roared in fury as 3 of his vessels simply vanished. Their hulls converted to harmless gas in seconds. Trickery. Weak shell cowardice. All ships, charge formation, smash through their toys. But the orbital platforms were just the beginning. As the Korvac fleet bunched together to push through the defensive ring, human fighter squadrons struck from unexpected angles. The small, fast ships used Federation stealth technology to appear and disappear like ghosts, striking at engine systems and weapon arrays before vanishing again. What manner of enemies are these? Demanded Graxter's weapons officer. They do not fight with honor. They hide and strike like scavengers. Crush them, Graxter bellowed. Land the troops. Show these weak shells what real warriors can do. The Korvac landing ships broke away from the main fleet and dove toward Valdrus Prime. Colonel Murphy watched them approach through his targeting scope. Each ship carried hundreds of Korvac warriors armed with claws, armor, and weapons designed for close combat. Wait for it, Steve whispered into his communicator. Let them commit to their landing zones. The first Krovac ships touched down on the crystal plains outside the city. Boarding ramps dropped and armored warriors poured out, their mandibles clicking with battle rage. They expected to face terrified civilians fleeing in panic instead. They ran straight into a carefully planned ambush. Hidden Federation matter converters activated beneath their feet, turning solid ground into quicksand. Korvac warriors who had never experienced fear suddenly found themselves sinking into terrain that fought back against them. Human Marines opened fire from concealed positions, their weapons targeting the joints in Krovac armor where the natural plating was weakest. The insect warriors were strong and tough, but they had never faced enemies who understood their anatomy and knew exactly where to aim. Impossible, snarled war leader Kraketha as his assault force took heavy casualties in the first minutes of combat. These weak shells fight like true warriors. How can this be? Dr. Ryan Phillips had spent months studying Korvac prisoners, learning everything about their biology and psychology. That knowledge now saved lives as human medics knew exactly how to treat wounded Federation allies and how to neutralize captured Krovac without killing them. In space, the main battle reached its climax when Admiral Rodriguez revealed her hidden fleet. The Federation ships emerged from behind the moon, their shields glowing with modified human technology, and their weapons charged with devastating Zephrian energy. All ships, open fire, Kate commanded. Show them what happens when you threaten innocent people. Combined Human Federation fleet struck the Krovac formation from 3 directions at once. The insect warriors, accustomed to simple frontal assaults, had no experience with coordinated tactics. Their massive ships, built for ramming, were clumsy and slow when forced to maneuver against agile opponents. Admiral Graxter watched in disbelief as his fleet was systematically dismantled by enemies he had dismissed as harmless prey. How do they move so fast? How do they know where we will strike before we strike? His tactical officer's voice was filled with something Graxter had never heard from his warriors before. Fear. Admiral, we have lost 60% of our fleet. The weak shells fight with coordination we have never seen. They anticipate our every move. On the planet's surface, the ground battle was turning into a rout. Korvac warriors who had never retreated from any enemy found themselves facing opponents who seemed to know their every weakness. Federation civilians, guided by human tactics, used their superior technology to create traps and barriers that the Korvac couldn't overcome. But the real shock came when Dr. Phillips activated his psychological warfare protocol. Speakers throughout the battlefield began broadcasting messages in the Korvac language. Not threats or demands for surrender, but something far more effective. Warriors of the Korvac Empire, the message said, you fight with honor, but you fight for leaders who send you to die needlessly.
Nice.
Your enemies respect your courage. Lay down your weapons and you will be treated as honorable prisoners of war. For the first time in their military history, Korvac warriors began to surrender. Not from cowardice, but from a dawning realization that they were fighting an enemy who understood honor and respected strength. Even in defeat, war leader Kraketha was among the first to lay down his weapons. As human Marines approached to take him prisoner, he stared at them with a mixture of confusion and grudging respect. You fight like true warriors, he said to Sergeant Hayes. But you show mercy to defeated enemies. How can this be? Are you not conquerors? Don Hayes helped the wounded Korvac to his feet, his movements careful and respectful. We're defenders, not conquerors. We fight to protect, not to destroy. In space, Admiral Graxter faced the hardest decision of his military career. His fleet was broken, his invasion had failed. And for the first time in Korvac history, an enemy was offering terms for surrender rather than demanding unconditional defeat. Admiral, his communications officer, reported, the enemy fleet commander wishes to speak with you. Admiral Rodriguez appeared on the main screen, her weathered face showing no triumph or cruelty, only professional respect for a defeated opponent. Admiral Graxter, your forces have fought with courage, but this battle is over. I offer you the chance to withdraw your remaining ships and evacuate your wounded. In return, We ask for a ceasefire in the opening of negotiations. Graxter stared at the human admiral, adding, in Krovac culture, defeated enemies were enslaved or consumed. The idea of offering terms to a beaten foe was incomprehensible. Why do you not destroy us while you can? He asked. Kate's expression softened slightly. Because destroying you won't solve the problem that started this war. Your people are fighting. For survival, not conquest. Maybe it's time to find a better way for all of us to survive. The Battle of Valdrus ended not with the complete destruction of the Krovac fleet, but with something unprecedented in galactic history, a warrior empire asking for peace talks with the enemies they had tried to conquer as the surviving Korvac. Ships withdrew to a safe distance. Colonel Murphy surveyed the battlefield. 3 weeks after the Battle of Valdrus, Captain Helen Torres stood in what had once been a Korvac prison camp and was now something entirely new in galactic history. Wounded Korvac warriors lay on medical beds beside Federation civilians, both groups receiving the same careful treatment from Zephirian healers and human medics. This is incredible, Dr. Ryan Phillips said as he examined a Korvac warrior whose arm had been badly damaged in the battle. Back on their homeworld, the Korvac have almost no medical knowledge. They've always believed that weakness should be eliminated, not healed. The patient, war leader Kraketha, watched with amazement as Dr. Phillips used Federation healing technology to repair his shattered limb. Why do you heal enemies? I asked, his voice carrying genuine confusion. Came to destroy your worlds and enslave your people. Helen knelt beside his bed, her expression patient and kind. Because you're not our enemy anymore. You're a wounded being who needs help. That's what matters now. Kraketha flexed his newly healed arm, his compound eyes reflecting emotions that had no words in the Krovac language. On our world, the weak are left to die.
Hey.
The strong survive by taking what they need from others. But you, ... He struggled to find the right words. You make the weak strong again? Admiral Kate Rodriguez was facing a different kind of challenge in the diplomatic quarters of Zephria Prime. The Federation Council was meeting to discuss humanity's role in their society. And not all the voices were supportive. Counselor Morden from Verdania rustled his bark-like skin nervously. Admiral, we are grateful for your help in defeating the Krovac threat. But some of our member species are concerned about humanity's violent nature. Kate kept her expression neutral, though she could see the fear in several council members' eyes. What specific concerns do you have, Counselor? Your people carry weapons as naturally as we carry tools? Said Counselor Zareth from Aquinas, her blue-green skin rippling with anxiety. You speak of warfare and tactics as easily as we. Discuss art and philosophy. What happens when there are no more external enemies to fight? High Counselor Veltara's translucent skin flickered with diplomatic patterns. The Council wishes to understand how we can maintain our peaceful civilization while accepting humanity as allies. Before Kate could respond, Commander Lisa Hart entered the chamber alongside several Krovac representatives, including Admiral Graxter himself. The sight of former enemies walking together peacefully sent waves of shock through the Federation Council. Perhaps, Lisa said quietly, the question isn't whether different species can coexist, but whether they can learn from each other. Admiral. Graxter stepped forward, his massive form towering over the delicate Federation representatives. His black armor had been polished to a mirror shine, but he wore no weapons. Council of the Federation, he began, his voice carefully controlled. My people have been warriors for 1,000 generations. We believe that strength came only from conquest and domination. He gestured toward Lisa and Kate. These humans have shown us a different kind of strength. They defeated us in battle, but they did not enslave us. They offered healing instead of punishment. This is a concept we had never encountered. Eltar's skin pattern shifted to show deep interest. What are you proposing, Admiral Graxter? My empire is willing to discuss an end to this war. We need something more than just peace. My people require purpose, challenge, meaning. For centuries we found these things in conquest. Now we must find new ways. Dr. Phillips had been working on exactly this problem, stood and activated a holographic display showing resource surveys from across the galaxy. Admiral Graxter. What if I told you there are worlds out there that no Federation species could survive on, but that would be perfect for Korvac colonization? The display showed planets with extreme gravity, toxic atmospheres, and dangerous radiation levels. These worlds are rich in resources that both the Federation and humanity need, but they're too hostile for our species to safely inhabit. Graxter S. Mandibles clicked with interest. You would trust us to control such valuable resources? Kate stepped forward. Admiral, we're not talking about control. We're talking about partnership. The Korvac work the dangerous worlds. The Federation provides technology and medical support, and humanity offers security and coordination. Everyone benefits. 6 months later, the first joint colony ship left Federation space, carrying an unprecedented crew. Korvac workers, Zephrian technicians, human engineers, and Aquinas environmental specialists worked side by side as they traveled toward a mineral-rich world that would have killed any single species trying to colonize it alone. Colonel Steve Murphy, now serving as the military advisor to the new Galactic Cooperation Council, watched the ship depart from the observation deck of the orbital station. Beside him stood war leader Kraiktha, who had become the first Korvac to serve in a Federation military unit. "Do you think it will work?" Steve asked. 3 species that were trying to kill each other 6 months ago, now working together? Kraiktha. Compound eyes reflected the starlight as the colony ship disappeared into faster-than-light travel. "Human Steve, my people have a saying, the strongest warrior is one who makes enemies into allies. Perhaps we are all becoming stronger." The real test of the new alliance came when long-range sensors detected something that terrified all 3 species. A massive automated probe network was approaching from the galactic rim, systematically sterilizing every solar system in its path. The probes appeared to be leftovers from an ancient war, programmed to eliminate all biological life. Amy Collins, serving as the Chief Science Officer for the Joint Defense Fleet, analyzed the probe data with a team of specialists from all 3 species. "These things are incredibly advanced," she reported to the Emergency Council meeting. "They're using technology that's thousands of years ahead of anything we have." Admiral Rodriguez studied the tactical projections. "How long until they reach inhabited systems?" 6 months, maybe 8, Amy replied. "And they're not interested in negotiation or surrender. Their programming is simple. Find biological life and destroy it." High Counselor Veltar's skin patterns showed deep concern. "Can our combined fleets stop them?" "Not with conventional tactics," Kate admitted. "These probes adapt to whatever attacks they face. They learn from every encounter and become harder to defeat." Admiral Graxter slammed one of his 4 fists on the table. "Then we must not fight them conventionally. Humans have taught us that sometimes the best strategy is the one your enemy cannot predict." Dr. Phillips had been studying the probe data and suddenly looked up with excitement. "What if we don't try to destroy them? What if we try to reprogram them?" The room fell silent as everyone stared at him. "Explain," Kate said. "These probes are looking for biological life to eliminate. But what if we could convince them that biological life is actually part of their maintenance protocol? The Federation has the most advanced computer technology in the galaxy. Korvac have the physical strength to get close to the probes without being destroyed. And humans have the tactical experience to coordinate a complex operation." Eyes lit up with understanding. Could use Korvac ships to get Federation technical teams close enough to hack into the probe network. Meanwhile, human forces create diversions to keep the probes focused on conventional threats. The plan that emerged was the most ambitious cooperation in galactic history. Korvac warriors volunteered for suicide missions to get Federation programmers close to the ancient machines. Zephrian technicians worked around the clock to create computer viruses that could rewrite million-rolled software. Human tacticians coordinated 1,000-ship battles designed not to win, but to provide cover for the real mission. Captain Torres, now commanding a joint species engineering corps, led the final assault on the probe network's central command unit. Her team included Korvac warriors who had once tried to conquer her homeworld, Zephrian scientists whose people had never imagined violence before meeting humans, and human soldiers who had learned to see former enemies as trusted allies. "Remember," she said as their ship approached, "the massive central probe, we're not here to destroy this thing. We're here to teach it a new way of thinking. The mission succeeded, but barely. Half the assault fleet was destroyed, and many brave beings from all three species gave their lives to reprogram machines that had been built to kill everything they held dear. But when it was over, the probe network began sending out new signals across the galaxy. Instead of sterilizing worlds, the ancient machines began helping them. Barren planets received atmospheric processors. Dying stars were stabilized with technology. Beyond current understanding, the universe became a little bit safer for biological life. 1 year after the Battle of Valdrus, Lisa Hart stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel New Horizons, watching a beautiful blue world spin slowly beneath them. The planet was being colonized by volunteers from all three species, working together to build something that none of them could have created alone. Contact on long-range sensors reported Lieutenant Jake Morrison, now serving as her first officer. It's another distress signal.